North-South Connection, back once again with another Countdown War Games edition. Tim from Viewer's Choice joined alongside my co-host for Viewer's Choice, but you may know him from this YouTube channel as the co-host of WWE War with JT. Marcus, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm pumped to be here with you covering this match. Number 8 on our list is from NXT Takeover War Games 2020, as of course the Undisputed Era taking on, I think, what we'll call officially the brand of Pat McAfee, Pete Dunne, Danny Burch, and Oni Lorcan.
I'm here to piss you off. It is the Undisputed Era versus Team McAfee.
No, it's not. Don't.
Yes, it is.
No,
Team McAfee, Marcus.
No, it's the brand.
Wrestling needs more team blanks across the board.
Oh.
More. Jack them up. But
got to throw you off the top of the cage.
Don't do that. That's a big splat. But thanks to the arbiting system we have, this is our 8th ranked War Games match across the board. If this is your first one jumping in, what are you doing? There are so many other War Games you need to go back and watch here on the YouTube channel. As always, leave a like, subscribe if you're new here, check back in for everything else, ring the bell, make sure you don't miss a single thing, as we've got 7 more War Games to cover. Plus, keep your nose out, because I think there's another huge project that may be on the works. Who knows? There's always something cooking with the North-South Connection. But for us, no spoilers allowed. But let's talk about what we watched, what we covered here for NXT War Games. And I'd like to start with stuff that didn't take place on WWE television. Let's talk about the Pat McAfee show. Let's talk about the interview that really sparked all of this up. Pat McAfee brings Adam Cole on. Very nice, very chummy, but Pat McAfee is giving Adam Cole the business until eventually very nice Adam Cole turns into very prick Adam Cole and kind of like tells Pat McAfee where to shove it. And we're off to the races on this Adam Cole, Pat McAfee deal.
Yeah, man, a pretty fun build. I thought it was a great utilization of an outside WWE venture. Getting started on the Pat McAfee show, where you could get away with some more abrasive language than what you'll hear on WWE TV PG programming. And to hear it come from Adam Cole, who's really been a good, wholesome boy, was quite the shocker too. So a shock to the system, if you will. But yeah, man, we're kind of off to the races from that. I like just from the jump, Pat McAfee. And this is kind of a thing in WWE. Some of the outside guests that they've brought in to be superstars, like Logan Paul, like Bad Bunny, is that they're getting the root of pro wrestling is conflict. And once you start from conflict, everything else is easy if you don't overthink it. And I think that applies to this whole War Games match. It's based in conflict, and it's based in that reaction that Pat McAfee is able to get out of our good, handsome boy, Adam Cole.
Right. I mean, even if you're taking the conflict outside of the Pat McAfee show, it was months even before we get to War Games at TakeOver 30 in Boston. Or not in Boston, but TakeOver 30 at Full Sail. It was supposed to be in Boston, but because of the pandemic, it didn't happen. And that Adam Cole and Pat McAfee have their one-on-one match that, of course, doesn't necessarily resolve things. Pat McAfee gets a hold of the NXT Tag Team Champions in Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch. Gets a hold of the Bruiserweight Pete Dunne, who's definitely got War Games experience. And they look to...
And an axe to grind with the Undisputed Era, too.
For sure, because they're spatting over the tag titles.
And going back to like 2017, I think it's 2017, where Roderick Strong ends up joining the Undisputed Era. It's by turning on Pete Dunne.
Yes.
So we've had a long connected thread linking Dunne in opposition with Undisputed Era.
For certain. And the one thing I will give credit to the commentary team here on of Vic Joseph and Way Barrett and Beth Phoenix, is the way that they interweaved the storytelling of the origins of war games, and that the war games was basically built to be an answer for the Four Horsemen. And if you look throughout the history of NXT, war games being reimagined for the modern era, including this match. This is the Undisputed Era's 4th straight War Games match, where originally War Games is created to find a way to tackle the Undisputed Era, and I'm sure this is covered in all of the other Undisputed Era matches that we've had on our list so far. But this time, it's as if the Four Horsemen use the weapon of their own demise to go after their rivals. Think back to Fall Brawl 96, where the Horsemen try to use the War Games against the NWO.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody that does the War Games like the Horsemen, and nobody does the WWE War Games like the Undisputed Era. So of course we start the War Games match off with Kyle O'Reilly for the Undisputed Era side and Pete Dunne for the
brand
Team McAfee.
Don't say that.
I'm going to keep saying it because I want to just give you the little jabs. I think these are the right two guys to start.
Absolutely. Yep.
They're the guys who have the most experience. I think Pete Dunne is the only person on the McAfee side that has any War Games experience. Everybody else is a first timer. And for me, at least for my money, Kyle O'Reilly has always played that Arn Anderson role for the Undisputed Era, which de facto makes Bobby Fish Ole Anderson, and you can take that however you want it. Absolutely however you want it. But Kyle O'Reilly and Pete Dunne, I could have watched them wrestle way longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, and you can see here why shortly after this we're going to get started with the O'Reilly push on NXT as a singles. Didn't have too many singles opportunities in WWE, but whenever he's by himself or in a tag team, the dude just always shines himself up, shines up his opponent, and everybody's better off for him being in the match. And I thought this was a fantastic opening period to the War Games match, which I feel like is always like a big bullet point. It's always kind of like chapter 1 of a good War Games match is that opening 5-minute period.
Without question. And of course, in typical War Games fashion, the bad guy side gets the advantage throughout.
Which in this case was one on TV when they had the ladder match. I believe Dunn pulled down the briefcase to secure the numbers advantage for his team.
Very much so, correct. But War Games continues on. For my taste, at least, the time in between having your one-on-one match and until we get to really the match beyond, no offense to the match itself, but it all feels like filler. Did it feel like filler to you?
I feel like it's one of those things, if it's good, it doesn't get remembered, but if it's bad, I think it can really drag down a War Games. Mm-hmm. So I felt like this was good. So by practice, it's not really memorable. But I think that in a weird way for me, it's kind of a positive.
Well, to me at least, if this were in different circumstances, in a different time period, I feel like that's the case. But when literally during this entire middle period, all you hear is just we're in the pandemic era, we're in the middle of the Thunderdome at the Performance Center. It is distracting the canned in or the piped in can noise, considering the fact that NXT had people, whether they're people at the performance center, whether it's friends and family, doesn't matter. There's people already there at ringside. We don't need fake noise.
Yeah, you've got the ring, you've got the cage, you've got the weapons, you've got the plexiglass, which is a cool add-on to the
Right.
NXT performance center days. So you really didn't need that can noise, and it is a bit distracting going back and rewatching it. But I did like that they at least like dimmed the arena.
Right.
And the screens weren't as prevalent as I remember them being. That's kind of the smoky haze effect, I think, and the darkening of the arena. So that's at least a positive going back. But yeah, the can noise on top of the commentary, it is an obstacle in watching this match. And another part for me that was made this middle section of the match a little less than ideal. And this might not be fair because this is more about what's not in the match than what's in the match.
Mm-hmm.
But for me in a War Games match, I prefer to have a big heater plus a powerhouse babyface on the other side. And there is none of that. And you can get away with maybe just one of those. If you maybe you can get away with just the powerhouse babyface. There is no Road Warriors. There's no Sting. There's no Lex Luger. There's no Dr. Death in this match. It's a lot of guys with repeating skill sets. And so I think that's a reason why maybe this middle portion of the match is not too well remembered by me as well.
I will piggyback off what you're saying, but I'll kind of evolve it in a different way. With me, the best War Games have the change of pace participant who comes in before your final two come in. That really shakes things up. Usually it's on the babyface side coming in and like clearing house and really giving that hope for the team before the fourth man comes. However, in this match, by the time the fourth man on Team McAfee shows up, which is Pat McAfee, all the baby faces are down. And Pat McAfee has enough time to pull out a Home Depot laundry list from underneath the cage of tables with the Undisputed Era logo and name spray painted on them, multiple chairs. Like, to me, I understand this is WWE War Games, this is NXT War Games, but this is not my War Games.
Yeah, and I think there's two trains of thought because in WWE you are going to have the kind of non-natural weapon use, the kendo sticks, or you're going to have the big cricket paddle that's in this match. You're going to have the tables. You're going to have the chairs. So how do those things get in the match? Do you already have them in the ring? Do you attach them to the cage? You do have like a whole side of the cage pretty much that's not being used. So do you do that, or do you have these built-in down periods of the match where somebody brings them and introduces them into the match? And I'd rather have the match without them. For me, the cage is enough. To me, the cage is the star of the match. I don't need all the other stuff that I could have
Correct.
in any other match. But when you get to WWE, that's just how they make their wrestling.
All the toys. They need all of the toys and all of the plunder. As an aside, I know that it's been covered multiple times on the YouTube for the countdown, but not by us. What are your thoughts on NXT War Games and at least now WWE's War Games, where the top is off and it is an open cage?
I liked the evolution with the top being off. I don't need the top on. I do like the ruling that
If you
if you
go
go over the
over,
top and hit the floor, then your team is disqualified.
right?
I'd like to see that played with and maybe make it if you hit the floor, you're disqualified or eliminated from the match. That gets a little dicey because in WWE, of course, you're going to have people reintroducing themselves into the match. So I could see that getting messy very quickly. But that's kind of a component, like you had talked about earlier, of the War Games being built and introduced to combat the Undisputed Era. There was no escaping from this beating for Adam Cole and company in the first couple iterations of the War Games match. So now by the time we get to 2020, they've been able to flip that and make it apply for Pat McAfee and his goons. So I do like that ruling, but I wish it was played with a little bit more. I think they did a really good job in NXT of introducing it and explaining it to the audience. I'd like to see that reintroduced to the WWE crowd proper.
Right. And I do remember in the first couple of NXT War Games is that the Undisputed Era did flirt with escape. I vividly remember Adam Cole questioning leaving the cage and eventually just going, no, we can't, we'll lose. And the pride of the heel goes beyond their logic and they would rather win than live, which is awesome nonetheless. Now, I think we might differ here, but for me, I did not like, and I really do not like WWE War Games matches for one reason only, and that is that it is a 20-minute 4-on-4 match in the War Games.
How about the match beyond?
The match beyond is it's like it doesn't even matter. Like the first 25 minutes of the match doesn't even matter. Whereas in all other War Games before, when all 8 guys or all 10 guys are in there, it's 5 minutes.
Right.
And somebody's getting, like, Brian Pillman's getting taken advantage of, or the longest tenured dude in the match is getting worked. Hardcore giving up. Instead, everybody's got to get their stuff in.
Yeah, I feel like part of that goes to what I was talking about is you've got everybody in here is built for endurance, except for maybe McAfee. Everybody else is a wrestler's wrestler. There is no bottom to that endurance wall for the other 7 men in this match. But I get
that. I get that, but this is War Games.
But it's War Games. But again, if you had a Sid, if you had a Nash, if you had a Sting, a Road Warriors, then you could have that kind of explosive finish towards the end, or you could have more of a natural wearing down during those 5-minute periods while you're waiting for entrance. You don't get that here. And again, maybe that's just how WWE makes their wrestling now. But I'm with you. I don't always need a 30-minute ending sequence, a match beyond, if you will. I don't always need it. Am I opposed to it once in a while? No, definitely not. But I don't need it like clockwork every single time.
Right, and it feels like that's how it is for all of WWE's takeover, or all of that WWE and NXT's War Games. There's always at least a 10-15 minute stretch after everybody's in where everybody's got to do everything. You've got different rote things that have to happen, including somebody's got to do something crazy off the top of the cage. And this time it was Pat McAfee doing the swanton through everybody. But even for me, how they get there, when it's all 4-on-4, that to me is the peak of, like, that's the apex of the match. Everybody should be fighting everybody, and everybody should be finding a way to win. For me, more often than not, it was all 4 members of the Undisputed Era either attacking Dunn, Lorcan, and Birch, or it was all 4 of the Undisputed Era attacking Pat McAfee. And very rarely did we have even odds on either side, except for maybe a couple of instances
Yeah, I think only
Any
2 times we got the big 4-on-4. It's right after Cole goes through everybody when he comes in and he finally gets to McAfee. They get to a 4-on-4 there, and
right.
then towards the back end of the match, we get it again. But yeah, and
Mm,
that's kind of again WWE making their wrestling. It's if you're doing this match for the live crowd, you could actually utilize both rings. But with the WWE War Games, they want all the action happening in one ring at a time. So the other ring, it's like, why is it even there? And you've got your trope spots you have to get to,
right.
which does eventually get us towards the finish of this match.
Right, which is of course it's your typical finisher waterfall until we get to a sick high low with a chair with Roddy and Bobby Fish doing like a sick kick high low, which then leads to Kyle O'Reilly dropping that big bomb off the top of the cage onto a chair onto the face of, I believe that was Oni Lorcan.
I think it's working. Yeah, it's working.
Um, and that is the 1, 2, 3.
And that rocked.
The knee drop off the top rocked. I don't know if I'd want Oni Lorcan being the guy taking the pin here when literally the beef of the Undisputed Era was against Pat McAfee. So why does the person who had all of the ire of the Undisputed Era raised, why is he not the one who's getting all of the revenge taken out on him?
I'd like to think that part of that goes back to this is the pandemic time, and we're very uncertain of everything, of when we're going to have crowds back proper. I think you want to leave that meat on the bone of McAfee and Cole running it back in front of a live crowd. You just
But
don't know when that's
they
going
are
to
this is
be.
their second match.
It's their second match, but the first one was a prisoner of the pandemic, and then so is this one in the war game. So I think you're trying to hold off on maybe doing the third one and delaying that payoff to see if you can get a big crowd for it.
True.
Which eventually they don't, and we don't really get fans back proper until like more summer 2021. And then by
I mean,
then we get
we do for
McAfee.
WrestleMania, but then of course
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
very
think
limited crowds until
yeah, I think they have
SummerSlam
the
2021.
exactly. So, yeah, man, we're just uncertain times, and that might have played a role in the outcome of this match.
Right. So getting down to it, our brain trust here ranked this as the eighth best War Games match. Um, I'm hard pressed to find where this is the eighth best. That's just
Mechanically,
me.
yeah, mechanically, this is very sound, right? You've got a whole
Right.
bunch of great wrestlers in this match, so you're not going to see anything that's like exposing the business or any flubs
Right.
or anything like that. And we are both big advocates. We're big fans of the Punter Pat fan club.
For sure.
Love Pat McAfee in
We'll triple
WWE.
stamp the double stamp on that.
Yeah, he rocks. Love him. But yeah, man, as a War Games match, there's just certain elements that are missing for me that make this outside of my personal top 10. But this being in the top 10 list and being in the back half for our list proper here at North South, I can live with. I think number eight's a nice spot for it.
I think that maybe there's some other matches in the early teens that I think could probably get bumped up. I'm thinking Fall Brawl 96, which was in the early teens, could easily come up. Because what I feel like this match misses, and I think a lot of the NXT takeovers missed or War Games missed, is the passion that is in War Games. I feel like they really captured it in the first WWE men's War Games with the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes and um
McIntyre, Owen.
McIntyre, yeah, and Owens. Um the passion was there. This was void of it for me in a lot of ways. Whereas, like, to me, that is like a core piece of War Games.
Mm.
There has to be like a fire lit in everybody. Everybody's got to be like, they have to know that War Games is exactly that. It is war. And it just didn't feel like it. And it might be just the parties involved. I'm a big Undisputed Era fan. I love Pete Dunne. I like Lorcan and Birch in this run. Their tag team title run. I like the 1-2 connection. I like them in this run. And of course, we'll always have nothing bad to say about Punter Pat. And we're also big proponents of the modern era. I'm very much an opinion of under the opinion that just because it's old doesn't mean it's better. But in this case, I'll take almost any other older War Games match over this.
Yeah, I can see that. And a bigger thing for me than I expected, a bigger issue for me than I expected was just the repeating skill sets. Like there's not a lot of variety in who's coming out, and I feel like that makes it almost not matter. Like if you're going to have a tag team, let's like an Arn and Tully or an Arn and Ole or whatever, come out back to back. That makes sense. You need those guys in there, like your workers per se. But like, where's the variety? Where's your fast guy? Where's your endurance guy? Where's your power guys? Where's your big guy? Everybody here is kind of occupying the same role. So that ended up being a bigger hurdle than I thought in my overall enjoyment. But again, NXT, this caters to a niche audience. And this is what that audience likes. So it may not be as big of a deal if you're a big NXT fan. If that is your cup of tea, dude. I did a weed thing that was supposed to be tea.
Pinky's out. Cup of tea, brother.
Then yeah, this might be right up your alley. But again,
sure.
Undisputed Era, always great seeing them. It was great being able to watch this, which ends up being kind of the informal farewell of the Undisputed Era. Kind of their final hurrah in this War Games.
And, not to put too much, paint such a broad stroke on it, but this is also more than just the beginning of the end of the Undisputed Era, but this is possibly the swan song, the beginning of the swan song for the Black and Gold brand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Once Undisputed Era breaks up, it's not that much longer before the Black and Gold goes away and we get bright and shiny colors and guys like Tony D'Angelo, and we lose all hope in NXT. And we get the bioluminescent 2.0. So looking at it that way, this is a fun War Games, especially looking back. But you can absolutely point a finger as like, this is a marquee date for historical purposes. The last time you'll really find the Undisputed Era all together as like a core on the same page, marching towards a more colorful future for NXT. Any last thoughts on the War Games match?
Not really, man. I feel like we did a pretty good job recapping it. Again, if you're a fan of NXT, this might be right up your alley. If you're more of a traditionalist with the Crockett or WCW War Games, then kind of as we are, this one's going to fall a little bit short. But if you want to go back and enjoy this time period of NXT, kind of the unofficial ending, high point and ending of the Black and Gold era, this is a great match to put on and kind of get that last bit of fulfillment from the era.
For sure. As always, follow everything we do here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, ring the notification bell. You'll see everything that comes up, not just this wonderful production, this wonderful countdown list leading through all of the War Games matches in history, but shows like WWE War, shows like Wrestling Warzone, all of Ryan Gray's premium live event previews. Check that all out here on the North South Connection on YouTube. And if you're a podcast listener, subscribe to the Podbean, northsouthconnection.podbean.com. There's so much wrestling and non-wrestling that we cover on a regular basis here. But we thank you for taking the time. Thank you for listening to us, watching us cover the 8th best War Games in WWE history. But keep your eyes peeled. 7 more matches left to go. Can you guys figure out who could possibly be number 1? Let us know in the comments if you think you've been following along and you think you've got an idea on who the number 1 spot is. And let us know where you think, if you think that this match actually lines up with the ruling from our Grand Poobahs on high for this match. But for Marcus, I'm Tim. Thank you so much for your time for here, the War Games edition of NoSo Countdown.